Good day, everybody. My name is Miss Maboe, and I welcome you to the grade 12 lesson under the topic Impact of Recent Legislation on Businesses. So, for today, we'll be focusing on the application questions on the above legislations, the two legislations that I just mentioned, rather. So, for question number one, we're starting off with the scenario. It says here, read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. The scenario is about Mandy Traders, MT. Mandy Traders sells grocery items. Mandy, the owner, ensures that workers have a meal break of 60 minutes after 5 hours of work. Employees at MT also receive double payment if they work during public holidays. So this is what happens at the Mandy Traders. Let's read the questions. The first question says, name two provisions of BCA applied by MT from the scenario. So there are two provisions. Without even reading further, you understand that the provisions are only found in the BCEA, not any other legislation. The second question says, discuss the other two provisions of the BCEA. So meaning we are being told that there are more than two provisions, but in this in this scenario, we only have two. So here it says discuss other than the two mentioned here. That's what is required from us. Explain the different types of leave. So we've got different types of leave. So we are to explain the different types. Advise MT on the termination of contracts. So to terminate is to do what? Is to end the contract. So we need to advise MT on the termination of that. Now let's start. It says here, name two provisions of the BCA that is applied. So when they say that is applied in the scenario, you are taking it from the scenario. Look at the scenario here. They're not saying quoting, but name two provisions of BCA that is applied. So which provision did they apply here? As you can see here, let's go through the scenario again. Remember, they're not saying quote, but they're saying that is applied here. Mandy Traders sells grocery items. Mandy, the owner, ensures that workers have a meal break of 60 minutes after the 5 hours of work. And then that is the first one. Employees at MT also receive a double payment if they work during public holidays. Already we've spotted our two provisions from the scenario. They say that is applied by this. So here it says the meal breaks and rest periods, also public holidays. I hope you can see the difference in this questioning. They never said quote, but they say what is it that they've applied. So you are not quoting. You cannot say they have a meal break of 60 minutes after the hours. No. What is it that they're applying? They're applying this provision, meal breaks and rest period, which is this one. Public holidays, it's that one. I hope you understand. Right, the second question says, discuss the other two provisions. What do they mean by other? Meaning other than these two. Give us other two provisions. So these ones are not found in the scenario. So what are those two other provisions? You can speak about overtime. Remember, overtime, you are only allowed to work 3 hours per day, but not more than 10 hours per week. Very important that you understand that. Right, it says here, workers cannot work more than 3 hours of overtime per day or 10 hours per week. Remember, the question said discuss. It didn't say mention or list or name. Right, the second provision that you can think of is the ordinary hours of work. So meaning how many hours must you work per week, right? Don't forget, workers may not work 9 hours a day if they work 5 days or less. And then it also says it says 9 hours if you're going to work for 5 days, and then 8 hours if it's 6 hours, if it's 6 days. So in total, basically, you can work for what? For 45, let me fix that. You are working what? 45 hours per week, basically. That is the ordinary hours of work. And then we move on to the third question. It says, explain the different types of leave to MT. What are those different types? Now, we're not talking about just provisions. The types of leave is a provision on its own. So what are the different types of leave that we have under these provisions of the BCA, right? The types of leave, Yes, we've got more types of leave, more than one, more than two, more than three, more than four types of leave. So let's name them, explain them. Right, we've got the first one, annual. Don't forget, annual means what? Yearly. So I'm not saying you must say yearly leave. No, it's an annual leave. Workers are entitled to 21 consecutive days of annual leave per year. 21 consecutive, they follow each other. 1 day for every 17 days worked. And then we've got the second one, which is what? Which is the sick leave. Right. So with sick leave, what does it say? Employees are entitled to 30 days of paid sick leave in 3 years. However, there's also a limitation. A medical certificate may be required before paying an employee who is absent for more than 2 consecutive days. You can be absent for 2 days and no medical certificate will be required from you. However, if you're going to be absent for more than 2 days, then a medical certificate will be required to ensure accountability. Basically, you're supposed to account for the number of days, because remember, you'll be paid for these days, as it has mentioned there that you are entitled to a paid sick leave. So we are paying you because so you need to take responsibility of that as well. So this is the first type of leave. This is the second type of leave. Right, to move on, explain the different types of leave. We saw there, we've got maternity leave. So what is maternity leave all about? It's for a pregnant employees. So a pregnant employee is entitled to a 4 consecutive months leave. So 4 consecutive, so they follow each other: January, February, March, April. So 4 consecutive. A pregnant employee may not be allowed to perform work that is hazardous, that is harmful, that is dangerous to her unborn child. Very important. Then we're going to move to the last type of leave, or not even last. It says here, it's a family responsibility leave, which is the fourth one, family responsibility leave. So here you've got 3 to 5 days paid leave per year on request in the event of death of employee's life partner. Very important, life partner, a parent or a grandparent. Remember, here you cannot come here and say my grandmother's grandfather has passed on, therefore you want to go or take this type of leave. No, it doesn't work like that. So there are limitations. You are told that it should be your life partner, your parent, or your grandparent. An employer may require reasonable proof before granting this type of leave. So here, family responsibility leave, we can also speak about your paternity leave. As a father, you're going on a leave because your wife has given birth to a child. Then we move on to the last type of leave, right, which is parental leave, which is the fifth one here, right? So an employee who is a parent is entitled to 10 consecutive days parental leave after the birth of his or her child, irrespective of the gender. An employer or the employer must be informed at least 1 month before the expected due date of birth. So here you're not just telling us today that tomorrow you're going on leave. So you should give us more than enough time for that. So prior to that. So these are the types of leave. Remember, when you are asked about the provisions, you can't say we've got sick leave, we've got maternity leave, we've got parental leave. No. Maternity leave, parental leave, they all form part of the types of leave. Types of leave is a provision, or the types of leave, this is a provision. But all these 5, they fall under this one umbrella, being the types of leave. I hope I am clear. Right, let's move on. The last question here in this part, it says advise MT on the termination of contracts. Remember, termination means ending the contracts. So when and how do we end the contract? It says here a contract of employment may only be terminated following 1 week's notice if the worker has been employed for 6 months or less. What does that mean? If you were employed in January and now it's June, you can only, or July rather, and then you can only render in or give in a week's notice, 1 week's notice. You don't have to serve 4 weeks or a whole month's notice. So you've worked for 6 months or less, so we only require a week's notice. However, if it's more than that, a minimum of 4 weeks notice must be given if the worker has been employed for a year or longer. So now let's say it's December or it's January the next year, the following year, and then you want to resign or you want to terminate the employment. I want to terminate the contract, then I have to give 4 weeks notice. So that is the termination of contract. So termination can be termination can be only done if you're following these rules here to say if you've been employed for 6 months or less, then it's a week. But if it's a year or longer, then it's 4 weeks that needs to be done. The employee must be given a notice in writing. Very, very important, so that can be filed as well for future references maybe. So we've come to an end of this segment. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we continue with the rest of the questions. I'll see you just now.